Once upon a time, in a small, bright village, there was a little girl named Amarachi. Amarachi was not an ordinary baby, she was very special. Her mother, Olu, had carried her in her womb for 11 whole months, which is much longer than most mothers carry their babies. Everyone in the village was talking about it, saying, "Wow, that's really long." It was a dark and stormy night when Amarachi decided it was time to say hello to the world. Olu was at home and the rain fell as if she had the whole world. The thunder was loud and the lightning lit up the sky, but inside, Olu was not alone. She had Tauka, a nice wise woman, to help her. When Amarachi was born, she was different, she had something very special. Amarachi had male and female intimate parts, which is not very common. Olu and her husband were afraid because they did not know what that would mean for Amarachi. They loved her so much and wanted her to be happy and safe. Then, Olu and her husband whispered to Tauka, "Please keep it a secret. We'll give you a piece of land if you promise not to tell anyone." Tauka looked at little Amarachi, very small and perfect, and shook her head. "I promise," she said. "Amarachi's secret is safe with me." Thus, Amarachi's life began with this little mystery wrapped around her like a blanket. Everyone in the village was waiting to see how this special baby, who had taken so long to come into the world, would grow up. They all hoped she would be happy and they were excited to see her grow up. In the little bright village, little Amarachi began to grow up. Everyone noticed how calm and shy she was. She liked to play near her house and didn't go to the village stream like the other children. When it was time to bathe, Amarachi found a small corner away from everyone where no one could see her. Amarachi was also very discreet about other things, like when she needed to pee, she didn't go if there were other people around. Instead, she waited to find a quiet place where no one was looking at her. The other children thought Amarachi was just very shy. They whispered. Amarachi liked to be alone, but they didn't know why. Amarachi had a big secret about the way she was born, a little different from the other children. Her mother and father had asked Aoka, the nice wise woman. Once upon a time, in a small, bright village, there was a little girl named Amarachi. Amarachi was not an ordinary baby, she was very special. Her mother, Olu, had carried her in her womb for 11 whole months, which is much longer than most mothers carry their babies. Everyone in the village was talking about it, saying, "Wow, that's really long." It was a dark and stormy night when Amarachi decided it was time to say hello to the world. Olu was at home and the rain fell as if she had the whole world. The thunder was loud and the lightning lit up the sky, but inside, Olu was not alone. She had Tauka, a nice wise woman, to help her. When Amarachi was born, she was different, she had something very special. Amarachi had male and female intimate parts, which is not very common. Olu and her husband were afraid because they did not know what that would mean for Amarachi. They loved her so much and wanted her to be happy and safe. Then, Olu and her husband whispered to Tauka, "Please keep it a secret. We'll give you a piece of land if you promise not to tell anyone." Tauka looked at little Amarachi, very small and perfect, and shook her head. "I promise," she said. "Amarachi's secret is safe with me." Thus, Amarachi's life began with this little mystery wrapped around her like a blanket. Everyone in the village was waiting to see how this special baby, who had taken so long to come into the world, would grow up. They all hoped she would be happy and they were excited to see her grow up. In the little bright village, little Amarachi began to grow up. Everyone noticed how calm and shy she was. She liked to play near her house and didn't go to the village stream like the other children. When it was time to bathe, Amarachi found a small corner away from everyone where no one could see her. Amarachi was also very discreet about other things, like when she needed to pee, she didn't go if there were other people around. Instead, she waited to find a quiet place where no one was looking at her. The other children thought Amarachi was just very shy. They whispered. Amarachi liked to be alone, but they didn't know why. Amarachi had a big secret about the way she was born, a little different from the other children. Her mother and father had asked Aoka, the nice wise woman. Looked so proud next to her. All the villagers joined the celebration, savoring delicious food and laughing a lot, saying, Amarachi and Tari are perfect together. Amarachi felt so much love from everyone, but inside, she was really nervous. She loved Tari a lot, but she was afraid to tell her a secret about herself, that she was different from the other women. Every night, when Tari showed her love as husbands and wives do, Amarachi said, Not yet, my love, let's wait for the right time. She tried to seem happy, but inside, she was really worried. Tari, always understanding, smiled and said, I will wait for you, Amarachi. I love you as you are. But Amarachi could see that he was a little confused, which made her even more scared. She really wanted to tell him her secret. The days turned into weeks, and the people of the village began to whisper, wondering why Amarachi and Tari were not close like the other married couples. Amarachi felt everyone looking at her, full of questions. She shook Tari's hand harder, wishing she could tell her everything. Tari loved Amarachi deeply, but Amarachi's secret separated them. She hoped that one day, they could share everything with each other. For the moment, Amarachi continued to smile, hoping that she could soon be totally honest with her wonderful husband. As the moon grew and fell, Tari began to feel a little opposed. Every night, Amarachi had a new excuse to say not yet. Tari really loved Amarachi, but he became confused and a little sad. He did not understand why Amarachi, always smiling and holding his hand, did not get close to him like other married couples do. One day, Tari could no longer keep his worries to himself. He went to see Amarachi's parents, walking slowly because he was very disturbed. I love Amarachi so much, he tells them, but I don't understand why she always says we have to wait. Is there something I should know? Amarachi's parents exchanged worried looks. They loved both Amarachi and Tari, but had promised to keep Amarachi's great secret. We understand how you feel, Tari, they kindly told him. Please be patient with Amarachi. She has her reasons, and maybe she'll tell you when she's ready. Tari shook his head, but he left the house even more worried. Feeling really confused, Tari spoke to the villagers' elders, hoping they could give him some advice. I'm troubled, he told them, because Amarachi and I are not yet completely married in every sense of the word. I respect what she wants, but I also need to understand what's going on. The elders listened seriously and shook their heads as Tari spoke, but in a small village like theirs, it didn't take long for the whispering to begin. Soon, everyone was talking. Tari and Amarachi are not yet close, they whispered. Amarachi didn't let Tari touch her, let alone make love to her. The whispers became stronger and stronger and spread throughout the village. Everyone had something to say or guess about it, but they tried to lower their voices because they still cared a lot about Amarachi. Amarachi felt the change in the way people treated her. Every day, she felt more and more worried by noticing the curious looks and hearing the whispers that stopped when she passed. Her secret, which she had kept so carefully, now looked like a huge storm ready to burst on her. Tari, seeing Amarachi become more and more distant, felt really torn. He was frustrated because he wanted to be close to her, but he didn't want to push her away either. The happiness they felt on their wedding day seemed so far away now, hidden behind all the silent discussions and worried looks. One hot afternoon, while Amarachi was walking around the village, she could feel that everyone was looking at her. Whispers and silent conversations had become too much for her. She needed to share her big secret with someone who would understand. Amarachi decided to go see her childhood friend, Kashi, who was always nice and sweet. When Amarachi arrived, Kashi hugged her warmly and saw right away that something was wrong. What's bothering you, Amarachi? She asked. Amarachi was nervous and her voice was shaking a little as she began to speak. Kashi, I have to tell you something really personal. You have to promise to keep it between us. Kashi shook her head seriously. You have my promise, Amarachi. What's going on? Amarachi took a deep breath and told Kashi her secret. She explained that she was born different, with male and female intimate parts, and how it made it difficult to be completely herself with Tari. Kashi listened with a surprised but kind look. "Oh Amarachi," she whispered, "it's a big secret to tell, but you're still the wonderful Amarachi I know. Your heart is kind and your spirit is strong." Amarachi felt a little better after telling Kashi her secret, as if a little weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She held Kashi in her arms, grateful for the kindness of her friend. Leaving Kashi's house, Amarachi felt a little lighter, but still worried about what might happen next. However, as the day turned into an evening, the secret that Amarachi had shared began to spread. Kashi, feeling overwhelmed by what she had learned, ended up telling her family about it. She asked them to keep the secret, but it was too intriguing not to be shared. Little by little, the secret spread in the village like the wind through the leaves. Everyone added their own assumptions and thoughts, and soon the whole village was buzzing with the news. "Did you hear about Amarachi?" He whispered near the well and at the market. "She is different, she has both parts." Rumors flew around the village, reaching every corner. Some were sorry for Amarachi, others were surprised, and some were looking at her from above. Amarachi could feel that people's attitudes towards her had changed. They no longer looked at her in the same way, their eyes were now full of questions. Tari also heard the rumors and felt a mixture of anger and sadness. He loved Amarachi no matter what, but he was opposed to her not trusting him to reveal his secret. Amarachi's life changed overnight because of the rumors. The girl once loved by everyone in the village was now at the center of gossip and speculation, her deepest secret shared with the world without her consent. Over time, rumors of Amarachi became colder and more hurtful. Instead of the usual smiles and friendly greetings, people turned away and whispered when she passed. The great secret of Amarachi was revealed, and it changed the way everyone saw her. Respect and admiration became something much colder. Tari was also very opposed. He felt betrayed because Amarachi had not told him a very important truth about herself. He loved her a lot, but he was also angry and confused. All the discussions around the village made things even more difficult. One evening, with a heavy heart, Tari said to Amarachi, "I think you should stay somewhere else for a while, just until things calm down." Amarachi was devastated by Tari's words. Their beautiful house, once full of happiness and dreams, now seemed so empty and cold. She packed her bags discreetly and left as the evening turned into night. Amarachi found a small cabin hidden on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by thick bushes and weeping soils. There, she tried to find a little peace, far from all the looks and whispers. This small cabin became her refuge, a place where she could be alone with her thoughts. But even in her quiet retreat, Amarachi felt the pain of being rejected. The happiness she felt before had been replaced by a deeper and sadder wisdom. She spent her days walking alone in the forest, talking to the birds and finding a little comfort in the sounds of the wind in the leaves. Yet, loneliness stuck to her like a fog on the grass. Amarachi, once so loved, now felt like a shadow in the village, present but almost invisible. Being rejected by her friends and neighbors hurt her a lot, because they were the same people she grew up with. Over the seasons, the village faced terrible drought. The fields turned into dust, the crops dried up and the river that flowed joyfully through the village became barely a whistling stream. The villagers looked powerless, their food reserves decreasing more and more. The night brought no comfort, but rather strange and frightening sounds. Shadows seemed to move alone and strange screams floated in the air, even making the most courageous of the villagers shiver. No one could sleep well, and a deep fear spread throughout the village like a dark fog. Feeling desperate, the elders of the village gathered under the great baobab. They were deeply worried and decided to ask the oracle for help. The oracle was a wise person who could speak to the gods. With a heart full of hope, they went to her hut at the foot of the village. In the flickering light of the torches and the thick smell of incense, the oracle listened to their concerns. After a long pause, he spoke of a deep voice that filled the room. "The gods are angry," he said. Our world is unbalanced. Only a pure and intact woman can restore balance and bring back rain and peace. The elders looked worried. They had to find someone pure for the sacrifice, but the oracle also let hear that something bad could happen to this person. Desperate, they chose not to tell this part to the villagers. Upon their return, the elders summoned everyone to a large meeting around the campfire. The villagers' faces showed fear and concern as they gathered. Who will take on this enormous task? Who will make the sacrifice? They whispered to each other. They began to look for a young virgin girl who could help them, but to their surprise, no young girl in the village was still a virgin. All had been touched and were no longer pure. After a long search, the elders convened a meeting again and declared that there was no solution and that the difficulties could continue until the gods decided to smile at them again. But as they spoke, someone thought of Amarachi, who had once been loved by everyone but now lived alone. Amarachi is pure, untouched by a man, said a villager, a ray of hope in his eyes. Maybe she is the one the gods want. This idea spread quickly. Yes, Amarachi could save us all, the villagers agreed, desperate to find a solution. With heavy hearts, the elders went to Amarachi's hut. Their torches cast frightening shadows as they walked, and the flickering light announced their serious mission. Amarachi, feeling the weight of their visit, let them in. The elders told him about the problems of the village and what the oracle had said, omitting the part concerning the potential danger of sacrifice. Amarachi, you have always been special, they said. Maybe you are destined to do this. Can you help us? Will you be the one to go? Amarachi felt torn between her past pain and her love for the village. Looking at the faces she had known all her life, she felt strong again, like before. With a surprising calm, Amarachi said, I will go for the village, for everyone. I will go. The elders felt both relieved that she was accepted and sad for the heavy burden that Amarachi had accepted. As they returned to the village, the path seemed darker and the shadows stretched longer, reflecting the weight of what was to come. At the first burst of dawn, the village was plunged into a tense silence. Today was the day of sacrifice, a moment of hope and fear. The elders of the village, accompanied by a few chosen villagers, approached Amarachi's isolated hut solemnly. They brought with them sacred objects for the offering, fragrant herbs, precious grains and a richly decorated little lamb. Amarachi had spent a busy night contemplating and struggling with the reality of her task. When dawn broke, she appeared in a simple white dress, her serene face and determined gaze embodying a calm strength. The elders bowed their heads with deep respect and they met her. Amarachi spoke to the elder, his voice heavy with emotion, Today, you do what none of us could do. You carry our hopes to the sacred cliff where the earth meets the sky. Amarachi took the package of offerings, his voice firm and strong, I am ready. I do this for our future, for all of us, she declared. With the whole village watching her, Amarachi began her solemn walk. She crossed the village with determination, the fields dried up, and headed for the high cliff known as the place where the mortals could speak to God. The villagers followed her from a distance, a silent procession honoring her courage. At the cliff, Amarachi carefully arranged the offerings as he had been taught. Then, she raised her arms and began an ancient song, her voice resonating with the deep fears and hopes of her people. In response to her voice, the sky darkened and the clouds swirled above. A strong wind rose around her, wildly floating her white dress against the sky that was darkening. The villagers below watched, mixing admiration and anxiety. Amarachi's song intensified, rising above the roar of the wind. Suddenly, the wind stopped and a ray of sun pierced the clouds, bathing her and the offerings in a golden light. At that moment, something invisible struck Amarachi, overthrowing her to the ground. A breath of fear and anxiety rose from the crowd, but before anyone could react, drops of rain began to fall, first slowly, then quickly, turning into a rain, signaling that the gods had accepted the sacrifice. Acclamations broke out in the village as the rain continued, a sign of the favor of the gods. They danced and kissed, relieved and joyful. During this time, Amarachi slowly regained her senses, feeling the rain wash her. She felt different, lighter. In this moment of belief, she realized that her intimate male part, source of so much hidden pain, had disappeared. She was finally whole as she had always desired. Feeling an immense relief and happiness, Amarachi touched her belly, finding only the soft tissue of her clothes. Tears flowed down her cheeks, not of pain or sadness, but of a deep feeling of freedom. She turned to the elders and the villagers, smiling widely. "Let's go," she happily announced. "The part of me that brought so much fear, let's go." The villagers were amazed and their surprise quickly turned into an acclamation. The continuous rain seemed to purify the last doubts or fears, marking a new start not only for Amarachi, but for all. Amarachi, being supported by the elders, returned to the village, lighter and freer at every step. Those who had stayed behind saw the change in her and the happiness in her eyes. Soon, the whole village was in a frenzy and everyone came to see the woman who had given so much and who had been transformed by a divine touch. "Look at her," he exclaimed in amazement. "Amarachi has been blessed by the gods." He rushed around her, touching her hands and shoulders, as if to make sure that she was real and that the miracle had really taken place. Amarachi addressed everyone, his voice strong despite his recent Calvary. "The gods have accepted our offering," she explained. "They gave us the rain and blessed me with a change that freed me from my hidden pain. Let's start a new life together, in unity and acceptance." The villagers' eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. Tari, moved and filled with a new understanding, advanced and took Amarachi's hands. "Amarachi, you are really incredible. Can you forgive my doubts and my impatience of the past?" Amarachi, his heart as open as the clear sky above, smiled and shrugged Tari. "There is nothing to forgive," she murmured. "Today, we have both changed." The celebration that night was unique. More than a feast, it was a celebration of the spirit and of the community. The songs and dances continued all night, while everyone, young and old, celebrated the incredible transformation of Amarachi and the renewal of their land. Standing next to Tari, Amarachi felt the warmth of the community enveloping him like a soft blanket. She knew that her life would now be different, filled with new challenges and joys, but she was ready to face them. The gods had given her a gift and she would honor it by living her most authentic life, surrounded by a village that had embraced the power of acceptance and love. In the days that followed the incredible transformation of Amarachi, the village was boiling with a renewed sense of unity and joy. The recent rain had not only revived their thirsty land, but had also helped to develop a deeper understanding and acceptance among the villagers. Amarachi, who had once been isolated and misunderstood, was now celebrated at the center of the village community, his bravery and his brilliant resilience of 1,000 fires. Deeply moved by the courage of Amarachi and the significant changes she had undergone, Tari approached her with an overflowing heart of love and respect. In front of the whole village, he proposed again to Amarachi. This time, he fully understood his journey and the true essence of his being. Amarachi said to her tenderly, "You have taught us all strength and sacrifice. I not only ask for your hand in marriage. But also your forgiveness. I promise to stay by your side forever." Tears of happiness in her eyes, Amarachi accepted Tari's proposal. Their second marriage was a magnificent celebration of their renewed commitment and the support of the village. It was more than a simple union of two people, it was a common celebration of resilience and a victory of acceptance over fear and prejudices. As Amarachi and Tari exchanged their vows under the clear blue sky, the villagers gathered around them, their faces shining with happiness. They danced, sang and told stories of Amarachi's courage, praising her as a heroine. The children played merrily, their laughter mixing with festive music, while the elders discussed precious lessons they had learned about the power of acceptance and unity. Amarachi was honored not only as a heroine, but also as a symbol of overcoming fear and a stronger emergence. She became a beacon of hope for all those who felt different or misunderstood, a living proof that personal challenges can lead to collective success. During this celebration, Amarachi took a moment to observe the faces of her fellow villagers, faces that used to look at her with suspicion but now showed pride and warmth. She felt an immense sense of belonging, finally recognized and valued for all she was. The moral of the story: this tale teaches us that we should never reject or underestimate others, because they can be exactly what we need most. It emphasizes the idea that helping others often leads to unexpected help in return, illustrating the interconnection of the community and the power of acceptance. I hope you enjoyed this story. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for more enchanting stories like this. Goodbye.